question now.
So, basically our idea is called the art glove, name pending, but it's sort of like a really big squishy thing that has a bunch of pressure sensors in it, and depending on like how a person would squeeze it, it would create sort of different things for like a digital canvas. So like for example, like something like this could be used like behind a person's head, like it could like squeeze, and then like depending I guess like on the settings, like it would do different things for that person. They could even have it like sort of in their inner elbow, if that's the only motion they can do. They can have it in their hand, maybe on their lap, that sort of deal. The idea is sort of like, even with minimal movement, you can sort of still create a piece of digital art. Even if it's not, like, I guess, precise. In our interviews, we saw that a lot of people, like, they sort of do it as, like a stress reliever, or, like, sort of just for the fun of it. So this sort of services that.
You know, if it doesn't work, you could always punch the crap out of it. It's just bad.
Could you remind them of the problem you're addressing? Like,
oh yeah. Yeah, it's problem we're addressing is people who with cerebral palsy would have limited mobility when they're making art, and that stops them from having an interest in it, or just stops them from doing a part that they really love about it. So, for example,
so instead of explaining the whole process, why don't you just read your "How might we" question to sort of give us the summary of what you're solving for?
So how might we improve the input for digital art programs?
Nice.
Cool. I want to maximize your time for feedback. So, anybody have any ideas based on what they presented and what their prototype is?
More a few things to consider. One is color. You know, if you can add color and change color and things like that. The other thing for some of the people we do have that do the digital art platforms, one thing that they find really helpful and effective is an undo function. So if they do make a mistake or something, they can just undo that last thing and start over.
Nice.
Also, probably one thing that you should think about is like how comfortable the blob actually is going to be, because you're going to have technology inside of the blob, I'm guessing. And also, how are you powering that? Like, is it connecting to the computer specifically? What programs are you going to need to use on it?
Thanks for the input.
Does anybody else? Yes, we've got two.
So I like the idea of creating a unique kind of controlling device to make digital art. And maybe this is something you've thought of, but just to make it clear, if it's a blob, you still have to be able to label its functionality, and if the sensors or whatever is embedded inside of the blob, how is the user going to understand the bento connection between, oh, if I squeeze here, I'm doing this thing. So consider the mapping and how you like label controls and let them know how they're supposed to use it.
My question, how durable will this block be? Because again, you know, it's going to be very hands-on. It's going to be used a lot. I just want to know, like, what materials.
Well, it's not going to be a plastic bag. I'll tell you.
Well, I know that. I'm
Yeah, think about it as waterproof or things like that. So.
Pillow-like.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
All right.
So, if I'm not mistaken, you have like a pillow-like thing that like you could squeeze or do something to create digital art, right?
Bingo. Pretty much, yeah.
How is that gonna work? Like, what motions do you have to use to do like a certain, like, for example, you're like, if you're drawing something, you have to do like hand motions up, down, left, right, and things like that. There's like direction. Like, how are you gonna input that?
So that's a really good question to consider. We both have some questions. To build off of that, I think it would be really interesting if you made it sort of a mystery, so it has no directions, but different parts of it do different things. So I discover that, like, oh, this right corner makes lines, and this bottom whatever, when I squeeze it, it makes circles. So it kind of like as you discover it as you go, or if you don't want to do anything specific, you can kind of just play around and see what happens. So that's my suggestion.
I love the idea and like the potential for it. And one of the things I thought of when, you know, you're holding it and like pushing it is like if it accepted pressure, like imagine something like if you hug it, like the colors get darker, you know, or like it presents a lot of like playful thoughts for me. So I think that's something you can really take advantage of along with what Halima's saying. Yeah.
To go off what they said, I kind of like the idea of say one corner of it controls the color, and it almost just like scrolls through colors, and then you just have some kind of stop button, like stop on that green, and then you squeeze another that's shaped, whatever it is. Like I like the idea that it's a blob because of like it seems like taking a cool stress ball and adding a visual component where you can kind of turn your just movements and stresses
like
into a
pillow.
unique personalized thing. Yeah.
That should be the name.
Great. We'll have room for one more idea of feedback if anybody has.
But just for very practical purposes, the idea of sanitation, just if it's being used by different people and different people reading and things like that, how you can do it.
Good point. Good point. Thank you so much. All right. Awesome job.
Nice.